Being sad, upset, feeling down. I wished that that was all depression was. I didn't think of my grades. I didn't think of my future. Every day, the one thing I wanted was just a reason to get out of bed. But after all this time, I'm grateful. And that was a bit of what it was like for me to have depression. And I'm not saying that everyone goes through the same types of things. I do want to recognize that we all have our unique experiences and unique issues that we're going through. I'm also not insinuating that if you have depression, that's something that's good for you. My hope is just to be an example that there could be more than just a light at the end of the tunnel. I was clinically depressed for about 2 or 3 years. It was definitely the worst time of my life, but the second most meaningful. For the first 17 years of my life, I wasn't clinically depressed, but I was definitely unmotivated and, as my high school form teacher would say, lackadaisical. Which I agree with, by the way. Besides the relationships that I've made, I can't really recall a single thing that I was proud of back then. And this apathy in the first part of my life wasn't really a result of having a lack of anything. I had a pretty comfortable life growing up. I had all the comforts that I needed. I had family that cared for me. I just couldn't appreciate anything or have the motivation to try. I think a lot of it stemmed from a sense of low self-esteem and a fear of failure. For the two things that I supposedly spent the most time on in my life, which was my studies and tennis, I was extremely scared of studying, training, and then failing. My biggest fear was not being as good as my friends. And to protect myself from that fear, I didn't study and I didn't train very hard. I had an incredibly fixed mindset. And I was constantly gripped by this subconscious self-perception that I had talent and I had intelligence and this needed to be protected at all costs. So if I failed, which I did quite a lot, I always had an excuse. That's because I didn't try. It's not because I am not good enough. So I was told that I was smart when I was a kid, and I thought it was so cool that I could not pay attention in class and not study and still pass. And of course there were those kids who didn't pay attention, didn't study, but they didn't just pass, they got A's. But even back then, I knew they were out of my league, so not comparing with them. And my intelligence and talent didn't really take me far at all. In tennis, I didn't even make the team for the 4 years I played in secondary school. And the years that I did make the team, I was probably the worst player. And in school, I actually got held back almost in the 9th grade. I failed 4 out of 7 of my exams, but a lot of people did. And they couldn't hold back that many of us. So I went through. I'm also not saying that if I did try, I would have been a top student or the best tennis player. I probably wouldn't have. But I think that what matters is the growth we experience along the way, not the talents that we're born with. And so when I went to junior college, and this is the last 2 years of high school in Singapore, my self-esteem got decimated and I became depressed. And was it because of a girl? Maybe. I'm just kidding. Well, my lack of emotional control was definitely the cause of depression. It was something that I needed to deal with, and that was just the trigger that unveiled everything. And this was also a time when my friends were going through rough breakups. They had major issues at home. And me, I wasn't going through anything that noteworthy, objectively. They were going through so much heavier experiences, yet they went through it all without having any issues. And me, every day, I told myself I would go to school, I'd be okay, and I would fall into a rut. I'd be upset with myself, and this became a cycle of wanting to be better, not feeling better, and just being disappointed in myself. And this grew into this belief and this seed planted in my mind where I was not able to go through such simple things in life. So I asked myself, what is the point of me living if I can't go through something so simple? And for the rest of high school, my goal was just to get by. I didn't care how I did in school. I didn't care if I failed my exams. I just wanted to get by. And after high school, I had a strong desire, strong urge to party and drink and smoke the nights and weeknights away. All the way for maybe a year and a half or 2 years after high school, when I realized that I wanted to make a change in my life. I didn't want to continue hating myself. I didn't want to drink and numb my pain away for the rest of my life. And for that, I knew that I had to go back to the drawing board. I had to really figure out what was wrong, what I could do about it. And that meant learning more about psychology, about mental afflictions, and eventually learning meditation. For example, I learned that the way I overly attached myself and clung to people who I was close to in a very dependent and overly reliant way, this wasn't practical for the rest of my life. I knew that I had to learn to build a strong foundation and identity for myself, one which I could be proud of and show self-love towards, so that if my self-esteem were to take another hit in the future, I could look at my foundation, point to my personal growth and personal achievements, and tell myself that I went through all of that learning and all of that growth. I'm not worthless, and this is proof of that. I am capable of achieving things for myself. I'm capable of getting up when I feel down. My time of learning and self-exploration after high school also showed me that if we really have the correct mindset, if we really put in the effort, we can change. Whether that's our behavioral tendencies, our skills, or even our emotional habits. If I was never depressed, it's possible that I would have been still stuck in that cycle of being afraid of trying and just getting by. I would have been stuck in that lukewarm life of mediocrity and fear, just protecting my potential. It's also not like I'm immune to emotional damage now. Not at all. I still definitely take hits. But it's just that depression hit me so hard in the past that it taught me how to get myself back up again. It opened up a whole new world of self-exploration. And I wouldn't trade those miserable, crappy 2 or 3 years for being the most popular or highest achieving student in high school. Not a chance. It's an achievement that no one else will understand to the extent that I do. And it's something that absolutely no one will be able to take away from me. No matter what failures and what setbacks I experience in the future, I recognize that falling into that pit of darkness taught me how to climb out of it. It made me grow so much as a person. Before depression, I was never appreciative of the family and the friends around me, or even the simple comforts of eating together with your friends and family, having a good meal, having a trip to Europe. I never appreciated those things. But right now I really do. I appreciate all the light, all the vividness of life and experience. And I guess sometimes you can only appreciate the light if you spend some time in the darkness. And in the past few years, of course, there were still times where I was overwhelmed by emotions, and these also had the same flavor of emotional tinge that I experienced in the past. But the difference now is that I know how to deal with it. When I'm overwhelmed with an emotion, I know that it's temporary. I know that it's worse when I'm experiencing it than it actually is. I know that after a few deep breaths, after I calm myself down or find ways to distract myself, I'm able to come back to that emotion, that troubling feeling, and I'm able to work through it. Honestly, feeling sad even started to feel a little bit nostalgic. These episodes of sadness kind of reminds me of having an old friend, one you might find to be a little bit problematic, annoying, mildly infuriating maybe, and sometimes definitely upsetting. And despite how negatively this friend might make you feel sometimes, you know deep in your heart and you've been through thick and thin together, and that your friend has helped you learn so much about yourself and about life itself. And you're grateful for that friend. But in the moment, when they're here visiting, you might feel upset. And that's how I feel with sadness nowadays. But also, the more upset I feel about something, the more learning would await me at the other side of that experience. I guess all in all, if we're struggling with something, there may be something to be grateful for within that crappy experience. And maybe having this in mind would help you, propel you to move forward in whatever experiences you're going through right now. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed and that you've learned something. If you have, I invite you to please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feedback, some things you want to hear me talk about, leave a comment, shoot me a message, all this good stuff. Hope you have a good day.